Welcome to Cybertopia. We're going to be doing something a little different until we're ready to kick off Season 2, and going to be putting out interviews with our wonderful cast members. This here was our first attempt at one, and sound quality isn't great. But I hope you enjoy hearing me chat with Valery about Hay's time with the hippie ex-SWAT character, Frankie Collard. Hay really put a lot of thought and effort into this, and it's super interesting, so enjoy. So this is the first casting interview that I've done so far, so it may be a little bit rough around the edges. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah. On that point, I listened back just kind of to refresh my memory a little bit, and the difference in my voice from the very first one, I sounded so nervous.
Oh, really?
I thought I sounded nervous in the first one, and then the second and third, I think I can hear the confidence growing as it goes along. So
that's interesting to hear. Like,
the first thing you said is might be a bit rough around the edges. Around the edges. It's the first one.
Yeah.
Just clicked immediately with that thought.
That's really interesting to hear, because I don't know. Like, I guess maybe that's a self-consciousness thing, or at least partially a self-consciousness thing, because to me, when I mean, it's a long time since I listened to, what it was like, I think that was the third session that we did way back, would have been, I don't know, March, April, something last year, maybe even earlier. And to me, everyone sounded great, and when I was doing the editing and stuff, like, everyone just sounded like they were pros in it, like they've been doing it for ages or they'd done it before or something. And I mean, to be fair, quite a few of the cast had, but I know a few of you were kind of first-timers to APs and that, so it's always impressed me that everyone sounded pretty good. And obviously I did my best with the editing, which hopefully helped. I guess before we get too deep into all that stuff, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you played in Cybertopia?
Yeah, so I'm Valery North, and I played Frankie Collard, who was a former SWAT team breacher, who then lost that job for reasons that I deliberately set up this, we're not saying yes, we're not saying no, because he's also a hippie, as well as a SWAT team breacher, and he did the sort of things that hippies do that can get them fired.
It was really interesting seeing the development of that kind of background lore as the game went on, because I think in the first session he was quite philosophical, and then after that he became more kind of cosmic-y and hippie, and it was nice to see him kind of coming out of the shell almost.
Yeah, I'm not saying that was also me coming out of my shell at the same time, because I was getting used to doing it, as we've just talked about. But basically, his twin loves are New Agey, spacey, cosmic-y philosophy and explosives and getting into places.
The perfect combination. Natural.
So, which I did because I just decided to lean into this description of myself as being like a cross between Uncle Iroh from Avatar and an overexcited puppy. I thought, let's push both of those in opposite directions to the extreme and make a character based on it.
It's a funny combination, but it actually, it's a really good description of what you brought together there, and it somehow worked. Yeah, that was great.
So, as I say, used to be a cop, got fired from the cops for being a hippie, and basically the whole cosmic philosophy kind of thing tied in so well with the whole every time you wake up you're going to be a different person thing that the tabula rasa scheme seemed to embrace, that it was like that's why Frankie went into tabula rasa specifically. Yeah,
I was about to ask, like, we never really covered that in any manner for anybody in the AP of, like, how did your character end up here? So, I suppose I
had all of that in the back of my mind as backstory lore that I could call on if needed, because I just love building backstories and sort of world building like that.
So how much of that stuff was, like, in your mind from the start, and how much developed as you played on? I suppose we only actually did 3 sessions, so there was limited opportunity for it, but
I basically had all this idea worked out in advance, because basically as soon as you pitched the idea and I said, yes, I'll do that, and then I started thinking about the character, I wanted to have a plan, and I started with the idea of hippie breacher and said what follows naturally from that. And obviously the cosmic thing of the waking up every time after who knows how long seemed like a natural route, and so all the steps came together.
Yeah.
Like that. So I had all that planned out right from the start. If anyone asked, I had an answer ready.
That's very conscientious of you. When I do these sorts of things, when I'm playing characters in games, I generally start with just, this is the theme of the character, and then work out as I go along. So you're on the other end of that spectrum there, so interesting.
When it comes to my story writing, generally, I tend more towards the plotter end of the spectrum,
I see.
as opposed to what they call a pantser, who writes by the seat of their pants.
So. Not someone that's just pulling down pants. Yep.
Exactly.
So, were there like any significant moments that were character developing within the gameplay for you and Frankie? Like, is there anything you remember where it was like, okay, this is a significant thing, this will change the way I feel about Frankie or the way he'll behave?
I mean, the biggest one was the ending of the finale, which I think we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
More about that question.
I think that's probably going to affect probably most of the characters at the end of it. I know.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
anything that happened during the other sessions or like before the end of the finale?
I immediately think of 2 points. One was the first mission where the door that wouldn't open from one side, it was just a broken mechanism and you could have just shoved it. And it instead went crawling around the outside of the train.
Yeah, so this was the hover train, jump train mission off the rails.
Right.
That was a really fun one. And you had a couple of really good moments in that. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was that opening the door, and it was knowing it could be opened is what made it possible. That was like the moment it kind of clicked, connecting the whole philosophical, cosmic-y concepts to I shoved the door open.
Yeah. No, that was great. That was a really good scene, that whole thing about like climbing alongside. You kept on failing the rolls. And I was like, oh God, what do I do? Am I going to have to shove them off the train? Like, how do I make this a failure that does not result in the loss immediately of Frankie? Because, you were literally just hanging on for dear life on this super speedy train.
I mean, it started with a really good roll, as I recall.
Mm-hmm.
So everything was going well, and then it just...
You couldn't get in the door, then you couldn't get on top, and then you couldn't... Yeah.
And I think eventually we were under mech pilot to help or something. It was that one moment where the door could have been just shoved aside by a feat of strength, and instead there's this whole thing that kind of connected properly.
It was a hilarious moment. I really just wanted you to blow up the door, to be honest, but no.
I mean, because right at the start I said, we're going to be on a train. At some point somebody's going to be on the outside of the train, surely.
It's a classic, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, I didn't know if you just put that door there to give a reason to use those, or if it was a part of the setup from the start.
When I wrote out these missions, I never set for there to be a specific way to do anything, and it's such an open system that you can try whatever you like. If you had done a good roll to open that door, you would have been able to open that door somehow, or like... If you'd done a different route, like, I don't know, maybe you'd gone through the hatch in the roof rather than the side door, you could have done that. So,
as I remember, there was like a lock-picking roll as well that was a really good roll, and nothing happened, because the door wasn't locked in the first place, it was just stuck. Yeah,
it was jammed, right? So that was the thing.
We didn't know that, so we just decided, it's a really, really secure lock, we'll have to go around.
So you said there was two moments?
The other one was the second mission, which was the drug den bust.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of development, it was the Nat 1 roll.
Oh, up on the rafters.
Up on the rafters, trying to make a pole, like a pole vault.
Yeah, it was such a good moment.
Brings the roof down.
Yeah.
And it's just having that moment.
I think that was also the first time you actually tried to use explosives as Frankie as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, Frankie's all about the explosives, and the first time he goes to use them, the whole thing just goes to shit.
Yeah, just got a little bit over-enthusiastic. Yay, explosive time!
Yep.
No, and then playing as Frankie getting up stiffly and going, I meant to do that!
Yeah.
Was the development, because, again, we had this whole thing that Zap...
Oh, yeah.
Zap was like Frankie's idea of the perfect figure.
Zap is a very aspirational kind of character, right?
Yes,
very confident, very bright.
So Frankie just wanted to look good in front of Zap, and that was the first big thing, apart from doing the lockpick with Zap's nail.
Oh, yeah.
And that was another fun connection.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of the character development, it was that moment of, I meant to do that.
Yeah, just styling it out. And yeah, it just had to be that Zap was the one on the floor where you'd fallen. So, yeah, good moment for Frankie there. So those are two kind of pivotal moments for Frankie. Do you remember any other moments that, if you've listened to the other sessions and stuff, was there any moments where you're like, wow, this is a big moment here?
I mean, there are so many good moments from the other episodes as well.
Mm-hmm.
But also, I like catching the baddie with the net gun. That was good.
Yes, that was good. I think the whole idea of the net gun, the way that came about of being like, oh, I'd like an attachment for the shotgun, what could we have? And it was just kind of spitballing, and it was like, oh, you can put a nail on it, and it was supposed to be like something silly, but it was like, yeah, this could work.
Yeah, and then that kind of ends up being one of the more important add-ons that I had.
Yeah, because you had it in every mission, yeah.
Yeah, didn't actually need it on the finale, but...
You used it, though, on the robots.
Oh, yes, I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, yeah, no, that was a good one. I mean, other missions. I mean, the whole Thieves in the Nightclub with the, like, social stealth kind of stuff going on was amazing. Mm-hmm. That was lots of fun.
Funnily enough, like, because that was the first mission, and it's very much a heisty kind of, like, Ocean's 11 sort of theme to it, a lot of people that listened to that episode thought that the whole podcast was heists. And because it's mission-based, it kind of leans a little bit towards that. But I was like, no, it's not a heist game.
Yeah, the one with the illicit medical procedures.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just the introduction of those characters was iconic.
Yeah.
All three of them. Zap, Smart Coolman, who's another absolute favourite throughout. And Sir Ingram.
Yeah. They're all excellent. Like, I remember editing that episode, the experimental procedures episode, and just laughing the whole way through. And it's just so funny. And I had to cut out so much laughing between everyone because we were just cracking up the whole time doing that session.
Yeah. I can imagine. And then Greenhouse of Error.
Oh, yeah.
Title, which was the experimental plants. And I forget who it was who got like an overdose of something and started having intense anesthesia.
Toby.
All the senses at once.
Yeah, he's a test subject kind of character.
Yeah.
And just thought, I'll check out what this substance is by eating it, and rolled the Nat 1. And that's just the Nat 1 moments. There were so many very good Nat 1 moments in this game. Really lots of fun. I mean,
it is the crit fails and crit successes are what make it so much fun, because the consequences of those echo onwards and onwards afterwards in such a way. What else? Oh, hover hockey, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Finding out about this sort of underground sport.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the episode where that was kind of invented, because it was all very much like giving the players a really explicit opportunity to just invent nonsense that they could insert into the world. And I'm aiming to do more of that as we go on. So, yeah, looking forward to really expanding everything. So, any characters or player characters that you feel you particularly gelled with or, like, particularly clashed with?
I mean, I didn't see any clashes at all. I think because Frankie has had this whole open cosmic kind of philosophy, they were very kind of happy-go-lucky, easygoing, and kind of got on with everyone that they were teamed up with. Mm-hmm. So there are no clashes, but I mean...
Are there any characters that you weren't on missions with that you would have thought, oh, maybe Frankie wouldn't get on so well with them?
That's harder to say, for sure. I don't think there would have been clashes as such, but maybe more of a difference of philosophy, of approach, because I think it was Nox or someone in harbouring a grudge that there's this, are we the baddies?
Oh yeah,
we're totally the baddies. And that would kind of not have sat well with Frankie, because Frankie comes from a law enforcement background and tries to do the right thing and stay in concord with the universe at large.
That was a really fun moment, I think, when that was said, of like, because there was a few times throughout the season of people saying the classic "Are we the baddies?" sort of line, because it is very much meant to be a grey area sort of moral quandary theme to this game, and for someone to just lead into it in that way, I was not expecting it, but yeah, Pan, who plays Nox, he really likes to push into those unexpected moments. That was a really great episode for that, I think.
Yeah, but Frankie trying to do the cosmically right thing kind of brought that to every mission. And there was some missions where that might have been a bit more challenged if he'd been on them.
Yeah.
But the anti-heist, obviously very much in accordance with being law enforcement background.
And especially because there is
right
potentially a danger to the train that really gives you that impetus of like, we are protecting people. Like, even though there's only a few people on the train as passengers, like, we are doing something good here.
Yeah, it's very much a clear, they are the baddies, we are the goodies kind of situation.
And that was kind of the whole vibe I was going for the entirety of the, like, Amazing Corp existence. Like, they don't necessarily have the right reasons about why they're doing things, but they're doing the right thing.
Yeah, that was very strongly how I felt Frankie would view it on the drug bust mission, that this does need to be done. The whole exploitation of addicts doesn't sit well, because Frankie may or may not be a recreational drug user because of it.
Keep it grey, yep.
So, again, what we are doing is a good thing. We are not the baddies here because we are doing a good thing, even if our employers have their own reasons for it that we may or may not agree with. We're doing the right thing.
Yeah. And I guess they gave you the leeway to do things in your own way to see... Like, if you would go, like, fully leaning evil or try to be, like, the proper good people. Like, I mean, you didn't harm any innocents in that session. It was only the people that attacked you or were immediately responsible.
And there was a whole theme that the net gun was used to capture, not kill.
Although it was hilarious for a while there that you completely forgot that existed. When we were like, how do we restrain this person? And everyone's like, I don't know, I haven't got handcuffs. What are we going to do? Tie them up? I'm like, oh, I've got a net.
That was a fun moment. And then comes the finale, and suddenly it's an actual moral problem. There are people... If we follow orders, these people are going to die.
Yeah, and especially for your particular group, because the other groups had no idea there was a whole village of people underneath that building.
And their actions would not affect anyone outside the goody-baddie situation. Whatever your view of the different rebel groups, it's only those groups that are involved versus us, the Amazing Corps team.
Yeah.
So they don't face that, and it's the infiltration Splody team that have to deal with it, and all of us, Frankie, Clarity, and Smart Coolman, are, whoa, we have to do something. And
you all handled it so well. Like, I was really worried about that part of the mission in particular because of the endangering of innocence, like the moral side of that, like, is so fraught, and I didn't specifically tell you what to do, that you had to protect these people, but you all went for that because you're good people. So
I mean, hands up, I had read the missions before because they're in the book.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and
I bought the book and I read through it, and I even stole the finale baddies for the combat for a mission that I ran for
nice.
Friends.
Cool.
I just stole them, put them in, and put in like a mech guard thing as well for them to deal with.
So I guess having read it, you'll know how different the finale is as written in the book compared to what actually happened, because in the book it's meant for just one team, right? But I split it out to 4, so made it a lot bigger and added a lot more to it there.
But so, I mean, I didn't know if you would have left that twist in, but I was ready for it when it came.
Okay.
And I think if you listen back to that knowledge, I think you can probably tell that I was playing up for it, because I went with the donk donk. That was another favourite moment where bomb, 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 and then we replied, just like instinctively, oh, there's other people down here. And you play it straight because we don't know if those are enemies, just will interfere for other reasons.
Well, I mean, there was a whole section of that session of, like, trying to work out, are we in the right place? Have we gone somewhere else? And, like, why are there people here? Like,
And, can we spoof the bots somehow or anything?
Yeah, I guess that, even if you know what the situation is because you've read the mission and that, being able to handle it being able to resolve it with the other characters and with the NPCs and stuff. And then the dice obviously also working against you at all times, because you rolled a nat 1 pretty quickly after that, and then I think another nat 1 pretty quickly again, so...
Yeah, there were things going on, and as you say, it's working with the other characters. How do we deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
So, as I say, I was prepared for the situation going in, but at the same time, we're telling a story here.
Yeah.
And we're putting our characters in that situation. And yeah, of course, the ultimate outcome of having tried to do the right thing in that situation and actually succeeding in saving those people and then being ditched, devoured, and so on, that leads into what happens next.
Yeah, so before we jump ahead into thoughts about the future, is there anything thinking back or listening back that you'd wish you'd done differently? Or you'd wish had gone differently?
I mean, at the risk of getting into the type of philosophy, Frankie, what happened was what had to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It couldn't have happened another way.
I get you. But there's no regrets or anything of that was a stupid thing to do, or...
I mean, I wish I sounded to myself more confident in the first episode, but that's not like doing something differently in the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's not a choice thing.
Yeah, in terms of how things panned out, I think everything went well into creating a good story. There wasn't a moment where, it would have made a better story to set the...
And I mean, I guess at no point during the whole season did anyone screw anything up so badly that someone got killed or some horrendous collateral damage happened. I'd be surprised if anyone answers that question to me as being like, yeah, I wish everything had gone differently or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe in the second episode, approaching it as a single team might have been more fun, just to interact with Bludgeon and Clarity a bit more in that episode.
Yeah, true.
But, I mean, we kind of got to hear what everyone else was doing anyway.
Yeah.
And it was really fun. The whole thing with Zap making up nonsense about the drugs they wanted.
Yeah. Morgan was so good at that stuff. Yeah.
And then the other two are hearing it on head comms.
Yeah.
Like, wow, they really know their stuff. And it's complete nonsense. And Frankie obviously would have had a bit more of a better idea of what was going on. But
just listening to all this nonsense and being like, wow, they should make drugs like this.
Yeah, or just thinking, yeah, this is perfect for keeping the attention away from what I'm doing, which is picking the lock and getting inside.
So I don't think there's going to be any loose ends that I didn't tie up or that were particularly left dangling. Is there anything that was kind of brought up that you would like to know more about from what had happened? Or
there were one or two player characters who didn't appear in the finale mission because the players weren't available or something.
Yeah, so Ray, who played Buran, the mech pilot, did not return for the finale. And sadly won't be returning for season 2 or anything either, but they were killed off, or written out, I guess.
So basically, their characters they get ditched in the same way, or what happened. That was kind of a thing that I wondered about. And then the other kind of loose ends that were mentioned largely got covered in the Halloween and the Christmas special.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like what happened with the data bug thing.
The data brokers virus,
virus that got in. And we kind of found that out.
It was nice to bring that back around, having it from the very first episode. And then...
Yeah, and of course, there were the live prisoners that we brought in. Mm-hmm. What happened to them? Where did they go?
Yeah, that's true. Actually, those are good loose ends, because there was quite a few people that were brought in. There was the prisoner from the train mission. There was the doctor from the experimental procedures one. There was the group of hackers from the neighborhood one. So, there's quite a few people who were brought into Amazing Core as prisoners. So, I think they're probably almost certainly going to be coming back in some form in Season 2.
That would be good. That would be very fun to see, I think.
I have no idea how it's all going to work out. I have these vague ideas of, it would be great to bring these people back in some form, but I have no idea how that's going to work at this point. So maybe it's something that will happen naturally as we get into Season 2 happening. Yeah.
The first thought that I would have is that there might be a jailbreak mission. Maybe we want some of their skills for our plans.
Yeah.
For what comes next.
So, to be clear, on the finale there, where basically you all get exploded in the building and every player character is in that building, even the ones that weren't actually played by anyone during those finale sessions. So potentially, if anyone wants to drop out, they can have their character actually die or disappear or just not ever be mentioned again. And the door is always open for them to come back if they wish to. So if at some point Ray comes back to me, he's like, I'd love to play again, then we can say that he did survive within his mech.
In true soap opera fashion.
Right.
Yes, so, this character you thought died actually comes back years later, played by a different actor.
And equally, if someone from the cast that was in the finale decides, actually, no, I don't have the time or I don't want to be doing this anymore, then we can just say, your character mysteriously vanishes after that. Whereas the others of you somehow survive.
How the three of us who were right there with the box when they exploded didn't just end up as a smear on the wall is quite a big question that I guess may never be answered, but somehow, there we are, survived.
I'm sure it is a question that you, as players, could try to investigate in Season 2 if you wish to go down that rabbit hole. It may or may not be traumatic for your characters to find this information out. I may or may not have actually thought of anything for this, so...
Right, yes. But I think, as we were talking about in the Discord, there is a pretty strong revenge motive set up by the way this ended up. How we've all been ditched by Amazing Core after doing what we think was an absolute bang-up job of bringing down the house.
Yeah.
And defeating the...
you did the job, and you weren't rewarded for it.
Not only weren't we rewarded, we were completely disavowed and...
Most definitely thrown under the bus,
Yeah, so there's a pretty strong revenge motive there. And again, as I was outlining in the Discord, this is going to have a profound effect on Frankie, because it just completely challenges the worldview that Frankie had held throughout Season 1 of this cosmic, everything's connected, everything has a purpose and a plan, and if you do the right things will happen.
Yeah, it's like a karmic approach to everything, right? Yeah. And you've done good stuff and you did them in the right way and you got punished for it.
And this just breaks that. Mm-hmm. So for Season 2, I'm going to set up Frankie. First, Frankie's dropping the last name and just becoming Frankie C.
Okay. I guess you're going to want to be flying under the radar now, because if Amazing Core hears that, oh, wait, they didn't die, there might be trouble.
And also just doesn't feel like that same person anymore. Just takes a hard shift into more kind of nihilistic philosophy, which I've looked up a bit and found some key phrases that can be used.
Doing the research, wow.
As like abilities. The way that Smart Coolman's abilities are all themically related to the Himbo core. This is all themically related to the philosophy. So quite exactly what they're going to mean in terms of roles, I have no idea yet. We'll work it out. But they're kind of cool phrases that sound like they should be roles.
I get you.
Should be abilities. Well, I mean, a lot of nihilistic philosophy, the key phrases kind of sound like they would be traumas rather than abilities. So finding the ones that you say, yes, this is something I can spin as applying to a situation in a positive way, and it's kind of obvious how that works.
I mean, to be fair, a trauma, the wording isn't necessarily negative, so there's definitely potential there, so that's interesting. So what I was going to kind of jump off of this one with is that in Season 2, you're going to have dramatically reduced skill points and item points. So out of all of the things that you've used in the first season, what would be the key things that you definitely want to retain with Frankie?
Yeah, I kind of want to say the chewing gum explosive thing, but sourcing that would be really hard once you're not connected to an organisation that has those connections.
I don't know, there's probably some underground organisations that can provide such substances.
But obviously, the shotgun with the net gun attachment was kind of the signature thing.
Yeah, right.
So it would be nice to keep that. And who knows, lock-picking equipment as well, because, again, that was the thing. So there's different ways I could go with that.
Do you think Frankie's going to become more or less subtle as a result of all of this? Are they going to be more into their explosives or more into the staying under the radar?
That is a very good question, actually. I think they're going to become more mission-focused. So whatever the mission needs, that's what they're going to do, just more.
Okay.
So if it's stealth, it will be all the way stealth, just cold, as invisible as a really big muscular bloke.
So he's not going to be wearing the neon light-up suit that he had in the finale.
Well, it depends. I mean, because I did that character art image of a dejected-looking Frankie with the Mohican, which, as I explained, that was like a horse mane model that just happened to be designed so you could fit it to any character.
Oh, right.
in the art system. So there's this whole possibility for another, I'm not saying it is, but I'm not saying it isn't, that maybe there was some kind of incident at like a nightclub where Frankie was a bouncer involving illicit genetically modified horse DNA, and somehow Frankie may or may not have come injected with it.
Amazing.
And that's how the hair ends up like that.
Right. This is producing all sorts of thoughts. Okay.
All sorts of punk.
Yeah.
And then he's dyed it in punk colours because that's the progression from hippie to nihilistic punk is kind of the idea. So there may or may not be bright colours depending on the needs of the situation.
I get you.
But Frankie is still going to be quite colourful. As like their natural expression, but in terms of what they'll do, how they'll express themselves, it's going to be full on whatever's needed. If you need to bust in something, just the biggest explosion you can imagine, there's no point in holding back anymore because nothing matters, man.
Interesting. Very interesting.
But at the same time, I can make myself nothing if that's what's needed.
We'll do whatever needs to be done. Yeah. Is that in kind of a means to an end sort of philosophy there, or?
Kind of, yeah. It's like being very focused.
Yeah.
There is Soren Kierkegaard, who's like a religious existentialist, wrote a book called Purity of Heart is to Will One Thing. So I can use that as...
That's a good phrase, yep.
And then a phrase, it's actually from kind of a punk band, Enter Shikiri, have an album called Nothing is True and Everything is Possible. So I've split that up into two, and I can use which either nothing is true as an ability or everything is possible as an ability.
Okay.
Interesting. As possible things because we can change the loadout each time. It's whatever suits the mission that we're going on and things like that.
Yeah, interesting.
That I can bring into this. And then I did write down a whole bunch of phrases. There's something from the Song of Solomon, which is a book in the Old Testament, which is cited as an example of religious nihilism again.
Yeah.
Some of the philosophy spelled out in it. So there's all these different sources that I can draw on now.
Man, I can't believe how much you've researched and prepared and stuff all of this. This is impressive.
I mean, I kind of know quite a lot of this stuff before anyway because I love philosophy. I studied maths with philosophy at university, so I've got a background, and I also love existential comics, which is a webcomic that makes a lot of philosophy jokes, but especially their earlier comics, they put explanations of the philosophy underneath, and sometimes I found myself wishing they'd put explanations of the popular culture references instead, because I didn't get those, whereas I did understand the philosophy bit. But so I'm basically bringing what I know and a little bit of research as well, bundle that all in and be ready for season 2. And then sort of character progression through season 2. I kind of would like Frankie to move from this very bleak space that they're going to be in at the start, after basically their worldview has just crumbled, and sort of move them towards a bit more of a positive, optimistic kind of outlook. Still maybe with this existential thing that there is no pattern, the universe is just random, but how you deal with that. So it's not just going to be bleak, negative all the time.
It'll be really interesting once we get going with season 2 and maybe at the end of season 2 to listen back to these and hear what people have said about their expectations or their intentions and be like, so when did that go out the window?
There's all sorts of ways that could end up being thrown by the wayside.
We'll see. It's all going to be very dependent on what happens, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, the whole nihilistic / existentialist outlook has a lot of potential to go in very different directions depending on what happens. But I would like it to go in that direction, and we'll see. Yeah.
So, speaking of intentions for season 2, you said he'll be very much on a revenge mission, right? Do you think that Frankie would join on with one of the rebel groups groups? Do you think they'd go for like a solo gonna take down from a small group sort of thing? All will be possible.
Yes. Nothing is true and everything is possible. I was just thinking what the different groups were.
Well, so those 3 main groups, the idea is that they will splinter and there'll be a lot more different groups that could potentially exist and will come out. So you don't necessarily have to join one of those specific ones, but do you think Frankie would be the kind of person that would join a group?
My expectation was that they would stay in touch with the other ex-Tabula Rasa, because they have the shared experience of what Amazing Core has done to them.
Yeah.
And that it would be a collective revenge thing. I think Frankie alone would probably just sink into an existence rather than having a purpose. But together, it would become a thing.
I suppose the question is more of like, would Frankie encourage others to join with one of the larger groups? Or would Frankie be more like, I will stay with this group of between 5 and 15 other people or something? Like, are we talking small cell or big gang sort of situation?
I think small cell. Again, it feels like the events at the end of the finale, probably not Frankie's willingness to trust other organisations of any sort.
Yeah.
So they might work in connection with other groups with similar goals, or whose goals temporarily line up, so that they can be useful to each other. But I think the aim would be to connect with the people who have the shared experience of being blown up by Amazing. Sort of as the other ex-Tabula Rasa people, to the extent that the others all feel the same way about wanting to get revenge.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure there are going to be a few.
Yeah, I'm sure as I have these conversations with everyone that I'm going to hear a few of those sorts of ones. So, we'll see, I guess, as we get into it.
It's also going to be a question of how do you take revenge against Amazing Core, or do you take revenge against the individual decision makers who made that call?
Yeah, I suppose this is something for you all to explore as you go into season 2 of, was this a systemic thing or an individual thing? Or, like, where is the chain of command that led to this decision?
Yeah, so, again, that is something that will definitely be discussed amongst the group, I am sure. And, I mean, I can picture how you would set up missions based on what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
For that, like, finding out who was in charge, who had the final say, who supplied this, who did that.
It's definitely a plot line I can see emerging as we get into season 2. I've literally not planned anything for season 2. I'm going to make it very player-led in that regard, and I'll be pantsing my whole way through. So we'll see how that develops. I do wonder, are there any PCs that you didn't play with that you'd really like to play with? I know you had quite an affinity with Zap and Smart, but, like, is there anyone else?
I mean, we were on the drug den mission together, Bludgeon and Frankie, but kind of didn't really work together on that. They're 2 different branches.
Yeah.
Julie the Mad Scientist is quite a possibility as well. I mean, everybody did so well playing the various characters.
I could see Frankie and Julie could be a really good team up, actually, because Julie would be creating random concoctions of stuff, and Frankie would be like, yeah, I'll try that.
Yeah. I mean, particularly with the kind of nihilistic philosophy, there'd be all sorts of this is possible and...
Going very YOLO on it, I know.
Yeah. Knowing what it's meant to do would probably be the thing. As long as Julie says, I think this will do something Frankie wants.
Right. Yep.
Frankie's going to say, yeah, sure.
I think Rev would really play into that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Rev would probably play into that Julie saying it.
Yeah. I'm thinking there's going to be contested roles here of, do I believe him that this is what that does?
Yeah.
Nice.
Nothing is true and everything is possible.
Oh man, nothing is true is such a rough philosophy to take into a TTRPG. Interesting.
But when you're faced with a situation and you say, I want to use nothing is true to deal with this, there are going to be situations where that is going to be absolutely useful. Like, do I believe this? You say, yeah, I'll have +1, nothing is true, please.
Yeah.
For example.
And I mean, we're British, so having a healthy dose of cynicism is what we're all about.
Yeah.
Like,
and because I listened back to all the intros to remind myself who was in which episodes, and Julie is described as having like a punk kind of look as well in the first intro, Greenhouse of Error. So I thought...
Yeah, I mean, Julie is very much a anarchistic kind of scientist. They're not like smartly dressed lab coat kind of person, right? So
yeah, I think those two would probably spark off each other so much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Rev is also very fun to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I do absolutely want to mention is I am going to find a way to work the names Howie, Debbie, and Widget into Frankie's equipment or dress or something.
Like as a tribute to the robots that tried to kill you.
The robots didn't know what they were doing.
They were not sentient, I'll give you that, yep.
No, in Frankie's...
The robots were as much victims as you were!
Exactly. That's what it is. It's in memory of them, our fallen comrades.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, because that whole episode was full of great moments.
Yeah.
And all of it was basically set up by the decision to anthropomorphize these robots.
Yeah.
and treat them as if they were people.
I did like going through the edit of that episode, and like I think it's towards the end where I talk about one of them and I say he or she or something. I'm like, wait, why did I say that? No, it's an it. I'm not personifying the robots. Like, the thing you'd been doing the entire session.
Yes. And like so many moments where Clarity's gone to scout off ahead, and there's smart arm wrestling with I forget which one, and then Frankie trying to explain the cosmos to the other two, and just the ridiculous high rolls that we got. So
it's so fun in any game when there's like just some kind of nonsense moments where people are using high rolls just to do silly little things, and it's just this is fun.
And just from the start of Clarity drawing faces on them and giving them names, and Smart saying, I'm going to do them a solid, and making the ponchos for them. Hey, we're meant to be in disguise, man. And it was just, that became the theme of that episode for us, and it was absolutely fantastic. And so for that reason, I have to bring in Howie, Debbie, and Widget as something.
Yeah.
They're going to be there.
I mean, maybe you could just like etch their names onto the side of the shotgun or something.
Yeah, I was thinking like the shotgun might be one of them, the net gun another, and whatever else is there as well will be the third.
That's nice, I like that.
However we end up doing it, it's going to be that as memory, and then I really hope other people appreciate it, because it'll be interesting to hear how Chris, who plays Smart, and how Basil, who plays Clarity, feel about that. I suspect from the way we played that whole episode, and they will be 100% on board, and I kind of hope that they haven't decided to do the same thing.
Maybe you could each have a piece, like each of you could have one of the robots. I guess that's something we can figure out as we go forward. I suppose we'll probably need to do like more session zeros again, because there's going to be a lot to figure out in terms of how it's all going to work. So it kind of feels like we've come full circle on this and covered off all of the interesting stuff that there is to talk about with Season 1 and the potential Season 2 stuff. Now's probably a great time for you to tell us where else we can find you, what other stuff you do in the TTRPG scene, or anything else you want to talk to us about.
The main thing I do is I come up with ideas for TTRPGs and then I write them down and post them on itch.io. So I am Valery North in most places. Twitter, I'm on Blue Sky, YouTube, SoundCloud, Smashwords. I have a Not Safe for Work novel on there. I have various ways for people to give me nice things or money. Main ones being Throne.me and Ko-Fi. If people happen to like the stuff I've done and want to encourage me to do more of it, money and gifts do that.
Well, you also have a massive range in your game design. One of the first things I remember when I met you online years ago was a football game. Yes. Literally a soccer TTRPG.
Yes. That one, it's kind of crunchy. Probably does actually need, I wouldn't call it a battle map, but like a pitch and so on.
But like just in terms of the subject matters and the themes and stuff, like you cover it all. Football, post-apocalyptic, the whole range.
There's a couple of fantasy fiction themed ones. There's Temp-est. I just said any kind of job that is undervalued, underpaid, viewed as not skilled, job insecurity, all that kind of lower, underclass kind of job. Let's take that and have a TTRPG where those jobs are your skill base, and you are going to take on challenges with those as your mods. And that one uses the Caltrop core because
Caltrop core's great.
It fit quite naturally. What else?
Have you got anything new in the works at the moment? Any plans for 2024?
Our plans for 2024 is to take a step back from the designing things. I would quite like to do more actual plays, maybe possibly running one or two of my games for somebody else's streams. I'm not confident streaming it myself.
I know exactly what you mean. I have toyed with the ideas myself, and streaming seems like a lot.
So, I mean, I do stream on Twitch a game of Football Manager 24.
Oh yeah, I see you doing that sometimes.
Yeah, which is quite fun. I'm currently in charge of Boston United, and we're having a really good season in our second season. So just put that out there as an advert as well. But yeah, I mean, I'd like to be a guest for other people's streams and so on, running that. So kind of put my name out for that. In terms of writing TTRPGs, I did actually write 2 in January already, by mistake, almost.
By mistake, yep. Sometimes the ideas just take you, it happens.
Yeah. A very much NSFW game called Glam Slut Butch.
Oh, yep, saw that one. Yep.
For Rev's Trash Punk Jam. And I had a lot of fun working out how that works and making artwork for it. And then a 24-word jam came up, and I thought, I could never fit a game into 24 words. And then I just had an idea that fits into 24 words. And it's almost like an extension of the lasers and feelings idea, where it's just 1d6 roll, and you have a number. But in this version, that number weights you between 4 different attributes instead of just 2.
Okay, interesting.
So, yeah, that was fun to create as well, very quick. Again, just an idea that came to me and had to do it.
Yep.
Now, hopefully, I can take some time off doing that creation and do more music, more story writing, and maybe more actual plays and stream guesting.
Cool.
So that's what my plans are.
Well, yeah, look forward to seeing some, if not all of that stuff happening in the near future. And yeah, really excited to, at some point, get down to doing season 2. I've got some ideas for other things to do in the meantime before we get to season 2, because I still haven't quite worked out how that's all going to work. But yeah, hopefully it's not going to be too far away.
Yeah.
It's been great chatting, great catching up. It's been literally like 6 months or something since we did the finale recording, so it has been a long time. It's great to be getting back into the mindset for all this and onwards to the future.
Great fun, and as we've talked about, I haven't actually stopped thinking about Frankie because of all these ideas of where next.